First of all, I want to thank all of you for joining us this morning in opposition to the 2 Salt Lake City sites included among the finalists in the Prison Relocation Commission's report. While I will first be explaining why the Salt Lake City Council is opposed to the selection of the 2 sites within Salt Lake City, I will also express our concern with the broader issue of prison relocation. The Salt Lake City Council is unanimously opposed to the 2 city sites included among the finalists for prison relocation. While there are broader questions and societal concerns about incarceration levels, recidivism rates, and rehabilitation, today I'll be focusing on 5 reasons a prison should not be relocated in Salt Lake City. 1, both sites are currently in undeveloped areas that will require substantial infrastructure investment. 2, Salt Lake City's International Airport makes adjacent industrial property ripe for highly skilled, high-wage job growth. 3, 42% of Salt Lake City property is already tax exempt, which puts a higher burden to fund infrastructure improvements on city residents. 4, Salt Lake City's daytime population more than doubles every day, which means city residents already have to subsidize services and infrastructure for everyone coming to Salt Lake City. And 5, Salt Lake City already hosts 5 correctional facilities on the west side of our city, including halfway houses and the Adult Parole Violator Center. Now, these 5 points don't even mention the environmental issues associated with the 2 sites, and Mayor Becker is going to be focusing on his comments on those 2 issues. So back to the 5 points. 1, constructing a prison in either of the 2 locations within Salt Lake City would require a substantial investment for miles and miles of general infrastructure, including roads, water, sewer, street lights, and snow removal. So who will pay for all of this? It will likely fall on the shoulders of Salt Lake City taxpayers. Adding context to this concern, currently Salt Lake City's budget for road maintenance and upkeep is already $20 million short every year from what is needed, with some neighborhood roads not being slated for replacement for over 100 years. Adding more roads to the city portfolio to service the prison will only exacerbate this problem. 2, one of the stated objectives for prison relocation is to develop a business campus at the site of the current prison location for high-tech companies to relocate to Utah. Salt Lake City agrees with the need for such a campus, but we believe that it makes much more sense to move the business campus to Salt Lake City near the international airport. Moving a prison to a site within minutes of an international airport to open property for a business campus 25 miles away from the airport is backwards thinking. A high-tech campus would be much more attractive within minutes of an airport than would a prison. So Councilmember Rogers will be speaking after me about the economic impact of a prison in Salt Lake City. 3, Salt Lake City is proud to be the capital city. We are honored to host the State Capitol Complex, the Salt Palace Convention Center, Temple Square and the LDS Church headquarters, and many other public attractions. However, that honor comes with a price. Over 42% of property in Salt Lake City is tax exempt. This puts a higher burden on our tax-paying residents who have to foot the bill for the infrastructure necessary to serve the entire city. Taking 600 acres of taxable property off of the city's tax rolls would create an undue burden for Salt Lake City residents. 4, Salt Lake City residents are already gracious hosts to a daytime population that more than doubles every day. While there are economic benefits to the city, the need to provide services for this population increase, which includes fire and police services, largely falls again to our property tax-paying residents. The city also has to manage most of the state's homeless services and population. A new prison in Salt Lake City would require additional resources that likely would have to be paid for by our residents and would remove any opportunity for future development that could help finance these critically needed municipal services. And finally, 5. Salt Lake City currently hosts 5 correctional facilities on the west side of our city. These facilities include halfway houses and the Adult Parole Violator Center, and already impact our west side neighborhoods. Locating another facility in the city is unfair to the residents of the west side and all of Salt Lake City. As I said earlier, Salt Lake City residents are very gracious hosts to all visitors, but it's important to spread more of the responsibility around the state. Councilmember LaMalfa will be addressing the current impact of these facilities on Salt Lake City. So in conclusion, the Salt Lake City Council unanimously and strongly voices our opposition to a prison within the Salt Lake City for the reasons I've mentioned. We already shoulder a large responsibility as the capital city and encourage the state to recognize and appreciate all that we do and not ask us to take on this additional responsibility, which will surely be of high cost to our tax-paying residents. So I'd like to close by making one other point. The site selection process created by the Prison Relocation Commission has effectively shifted the public discussion to a not in our city debate and away from the broader question, what is the cost benefit to Utah taxpayers of moving the prison? What do taxpayers statewide gain from spending taxpayer money to relocate the prison? Nothing. Why isn't the prison, I agree, why isn't the prison being rebuilt within a smaller footprint on the existing site, which could still open land for development? These questions are largely being ignored by current public opposition because each community fears getting stuck with the prison because it argued that the prison should be rebuilt where it is. So today, I ask all Utah taxpayers to join with us in voicing your opposition to the broader issue of prison relocation. This is a much bigger issue than just for the 6 communities identified as site finalists by the Prison Relocation Commission. So, again, thank you for being here. I want to turn the time over now to Councilmember James Rogers, who represents District 1, which is the district where both of these sites are located. Following Councilmember Rogers, we'll have Councilmember LaMalfa speak. Councilmember LaMalfa represents District 2, also on the west side of Salt Lake City, which houses most of the existing correctional facilities in the city. After Councilmember LaMalfa, we'll turn the time over to Mayor Becker to make his remarks about the prison relocation. We'll go to that point on our agenda.
Welcome to Salt Lake City, and especially welcome to Salt Lake City District 1. The state of Utah and Salt Lake City has been the right place for generations of its residents for countless reasons. For all the reasons it is the right place, Salt Lake is the wrong place for any proposal to relocate the Utah State Prison. Utah has been recognized for its slogan, Life Elevated. How will the sentiment behind that message be affected when a visitor's first glimpse entering the gateway to our great state is a 500-plus acre parcel of land that houses the state's penitentiary? Outside of the negative effect of our state's perception and tourism industry, there are even more tangible reasons why a relocation of the state's penitentiary will exert an even more devastating impact upon Salt Lake City residents and North Salt Lake City residents. Salt Lake City, particularly those areas near the proposed site in my district, will have its potential for economic growth severely hampered. Residents of Salt Lake City already have an incredibly high 42% of the city land designated as tax-exempt areas. The new prison with its tax-exempt status would not only increase the tax burden for these residents, but it would also reduce property values and tax revenues. In addition, the amplified level of support needed for proposed relocation would require an increase in services at the same time that tax revenues diminish. This is an unfair burden to place on the residents of Salt Lake City. There are several new residential and business developments, as well as a youth soccer complex near the proposed site. Would these individuals and companies have made the same choice if they knew they would be building in an area that would be the next site for the state penitentiary? Will others looking to find homes or start up new businesses consider this location when their backyard is dominated by a prison facility? The proposed sites are in the heart of an area surrounding our airport that has seen a major boom in new construction. Securing a 500-plus acre parcel to develop a new prison will not only prevent future development of this area, but could lively drive current businesses out of the area. Salt Lake City is home to the Salt Lake City International Airport. Salt Lake City International Airport is probably the best-run airport in the United States of America. And to put a prison within an arm's length of that severely hampers the growth that it has, the potential that it has to acquire and to relocate new businesses to the area. I find it ironic that our iconic state fairgrounds, where we are today, a location with such rich history, which has done so much good for our state, cannot get the funding that it severely needs to be sustainable. But a new prison, essentially in the same local district, encounters relatively little resistance in securing the funding needed for a massive relocation project. In 10 to 20 years, Salt Lake will be in the same boat as Draper. Our projected growth will be at risk, and the return on development of Salt Lake's Northwest region and the International Center could be in jeopardy. Rather than prioritizing the needs of our state's prison facility over the Salt Lake residents and communities, we must find a way to balance the very real needs of this state's penitentiary and the safety of its staff, its prisoners, and with the potential impacts on the residents here in Salt Lake City. The State Prison Relocation Commission has not fully examined existing conditions and future potential for the two Salt Lake sites. Parcel by parcel, neighborhood by neighborhood, a decision to build here does not add up, and it drastically hinders both good environmental stewardship and appropriate economic development on multitude of fronts. I'm going to turn the time over to Kyle Amalfa.
In all my life as a Utahn, I have never seen a project that pits the profits of so few against the needs of so many. The prison relocation project is tearing our state apart by pitting cities against one another. In a time when Utah should be standing together to focus on the real problems facing our future, cities are pushing each other apart. By focusing on concentrating prison services, the Prison Relocation Commission is further exacerbating the disenfranchisement of the West Side, not just of Salt Lake City, but of the whole valley. Of the 5 Utah parole centers, 4 of them are located in or at the edge of Salt Lake City's West Side. That includes 100% of all women parolees and 100% of all sex offender parolees. The criteria of concentrating correction services is shouldering an undue burden on a community that already shoulders nearly all of the parolees of Utah. And by the way, the only federal parole center is also in Salt Lake City's West Side. It's too much for our community. People living on the west side of Salt Lake City have among the largest families in Utah. The Prison Relocation Commission is using a criteria that unfortunately fails to account for high concentrations of children. We don't want our kids growing up in the shadow of a prison fence. Rather than waste additional taxpayer dollars on developer giveaways, we should focus on reducing our class sizes and investing in kids and supporting families. Ultimately, our goal should be to dwindle the need for a prison through reforms and a better education system. Thank you. And now, Mayor Becker.
Thank you, City Council chairs and members for hosting this event today. And there's one thing that is clear from everybody in this room, and I think virtually everyone in Salt Lake City. These two sites identified for potential location of this prison is wrong in every conceivable way. When we got word that the Product Commission was looking at potential sites in Salt Lake City, we wanted to give it an honest evaluation. And for over a month, we performed an evaluation that I know they could not perform. They were looking statewide at the sites they identified in Salt Lake City. They looked at things like proximity to services and facilities that would need to be accessed by the prison. I get that. They looked at proximity to where potential employees would live. I get that. But they did not look at the most basic factors for how a prison should be sited. As has been described, they didn't consider in any meaningful way what it would mean for economic development, what it would mean for a community and how that community was affected in our schools. They didn't consider what the impact would be on a city that, as has been mentioned, is already bears the responsibility of so much governmental and nonprofit housing for so many facilities. And as importantly for so many of us, they did not consider the environment at all of these sites. The northern site is a site that was underwater as recently as the 83-84 floods. And it's also where our airport runway protection zone exists. Now, those are pretty basic factors that create fatal flaws for that site. The western site is an area with extremely high ground tables, and in historical times, during a seismic event, was overwhelmed by a flood and by a wave. Now, when you site a prison, you have a captive population. And if something happens, we don't get warning on our seismic events. If something happens, which we know eventually it will, and people need to be evacuated immediately, you do not want a site that would be the subject of that kind of catastrophic event, and where either prisoners would be trapped or prisoners would have to be released. We've seen the effects of failure to consider these kinds of things in the Katrina catastrophe, and more recently in Ohio with some flooding. This is also the center of an internationally significant environmental area. The Great Salt Lake is the home for an international flyway for birds migrating back and forth north to south in this country and around the world, in this hemisphere. And there are a lot of good reasons why sites have never been developed near the Great Salt Lake just because of the environmental effects. So you combine the economic effects, the effects on the individuals and the kids in our community, the environmental effects, the public safety effects. If the state is serious about looking for a site, then they better look at sites much more carefully than they have to date. And I can tell you, on behalf of Salt Lake City, we will not stop in this fight to keep the prison from being located in Salt Lake City at these sites. So I want to invite everybody to both go to the Salt Lake City website. There's information there on who to contact. There is a Prison Relocation Commission. We invite you to contact every member of the legislature and let them know how you feel about these prison sites in Salt Lake City. I also want to invite people this evening at 5:30. We're going to be gathering together and talking about how we are going to press forward as the community as a whole and make sure the legislature understands that these sites will not work in Salt Lake City. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Becker.
It'll take 2 minutes.
Okay.
Are
you Conrad?
What?
Are you Conrad Jacobson?
Yep.
Okay, just 1 second. Okay.
Take this.
So, what I'd like to do.
That's where it was.
Oh.
It's in room 326 in the City County building at 5:30. Thank you.
So, and we'll have more information. City Council staff and Mayor's staff are here. So, if you do have questions about the specifics of tonight, there are people here that can answer those questions for you. I think it's very important to note that this is not just a Salt Lake City issue. This is a broader community issue, and I'm very honored to have with us Conrad Jacobson, who's a member of the North Salt Lake City Council. This issue and these sites also impact the city of North Salt Lake as well as other municipalities in Davis County. So we'll turn the time over to Conrad Jacobson, and he can introduce the other council members who are here from North Salt Lake City as well. So.
Yes, I want to say something. My name is Ralph Greenberg. The Prison Relocation Commission should understand that Salt Lake City does not end the problem. It extends into North Salt Lake. The problem here extends into North Salt Lake and all of Davis County as well. Within the proximate area of this proposed North Prison site are one elementary school within 1/2 mile, 3 other elementary schools within 3/4 of a mile, and an additional elementary school within 1.5 miles. No! That's unconscionable. I don't think that I need to expand greatly on what my colleagues from the Salt Lake City Council have said and what Mayor Becker has said this morning, but let me read to you Resolution number 2014-29R, a resolution of the North Salt Lake City Council, which will be passed unanimously this evening. Whereas the legislature of the state of Utah, the governor concurring therein, that the Utah State prison facilities currently located in Draper should be relocated from that site to one or more other suitable locations in the state. Whereas the State Prison Relocation Commission's consultant has informed Salt Lake City that they have identified 2 locations within Salt Lake City as potential sites for the relocation of the prison, with one location immediately north of the Salt Lake International Airport, the north site. And whereas the city agrees with the Salt Lake City analysis, the north site is not economically or physically feasible for the relocation of the state prison, and further agrees that geologic and environmental concerns, infrastructure costs, airport conflicts, likely litigation risks, and undue financial burden on businesses and residents make this site unsuitable. Now therefore, let it be resolved by the mayor and city council of the city of North Salt Lake, Utah, as follows. The mayor and city council of the city of North Salt Lake do hereby express our unqualified opposition to the Utah State Prison being relocated to the property north of the Salt Lake International Airport, and and supports the efforts of Salt Lake City in their opposition to this site. Passed and adopted by the Mayor and City Council of the City of North Salt Lake this 16th day of December 2014. Thank you very much. We are proud to share a border with the City of Salt Lake City. We are proud to be residents of the great state of Utah. We have shared needs. We have shared problems. Let's not make this one of our continuing problems. Thank you very much.
Okay, so thanks again for everyone who came out today. We do have more information around, so we're also everyone who spoke is going to be here as well to answer questions. Should there be any. I do want to quickly take the time to introduce everyone else who was not able to speak today. We are fortunate to have with us two members of the state legislature, Representative Angela Romero and newly elected Representative Sandra Hollins. So thank you both for being here. We also have with us Salt Lake City Council members Aaron Mendenhall, Luke Garrett. You heard from Councilmember James Rogers and Kyle LaMalfa. Thank you very much to Mayor Becker for being here. Councilmember Conrad Jacobson from North Salt Lake City Council. And Brian Horrocks, also from the North Salt Lake City Council. So thank you for being here. Again, we appreciate you all taking time out of your busy day to join us in opposing the two prison sites in Salt Lake City. Let's encourage our friends, neighbors, family members to contact your legislators. Let them know not only that you are opposed to a prison relocation in Salt Lake City, but that you question the broader concept of prison relocation in general. So thank you very much.